warm welcome back to the channel. Kind truths. May the sincerest wishes for health, peace, and boundless blessings be sent to all of you listening. We, who are on the journey of life, have all had moments of standing at a crossroads, our hearts filled with confusion. We are placed in an invisible race, weighed down by the expectations of society, of family, and sometimes, most harshly, of ourselves. Regarding the two words, success, we look at those around us and it seems as though everyone has found their own wide open road, while we are still fumbling, trying one job after another without yet finding our safe harbor. Feelings of inferiority and disappointment creep into our minds, making us sometimes wonder if we are incompetent, if we are talentless. In such moments, we often forget one thing, that these stumbles, these trials and errors, are not failures, not a final stop. Perhaps the universe is trying to send us a different message, a map drawn from these very experiences. Perhaps, before building a sturdy house, we need to find and understand our own piece of land. Today's talk is not to offer a ready-made formula for success, but to reflect together on the true value of a human being. We will discover that the most precious foundation is not a temporary job or a flashy title, but the depth of our inner world, the courage to face and rise after every fall. Ancient wisdom has taught the value of perseverance and self-understanding, and surprisingly, modern neuroscience is now proving that challenges and stumbles are the best way for us to become stronger and more resilient. Let's begin this journey together, to rediscover the treasure that already exists within each of us. There is a wonderful saying that a fish will live its whole life believing it is stupid if we judge it by its ability to climb a tree. We often look at someone who is not good with numbers and quickly assume they are not intelligent, or see someone who is not skillful in communication and think they will never succeed. But we forget that each of us is born a unique seed. Some seeds carry the mission of becoming a sturdy ancient tree, providing shade for the world. Other seeds are like flexible bamboo, resilient in the face of storms. And there are seeds that will bloom into fragrant flowers, beautifying life. How absurd it would be to force a flower to grow as tall as an ancient tree. The problem is not with the seed, but with the fact that we are trying to sow it on unsuitable soil. Ancient wisdom calls this theme 10, the innate nature of each person. Forcing ourselves into an unfitting mold is like sowing a precious ginseng seed on gravel. It's not that the seed is bad, but that the soil is wrong. Miraculously, this truth is not just an abstract philosophy. Modern science has proven it clearly. A psychologist named Howard Gardner introduced the theory of multiple intelligences. He pointed out that human intelligence is not limited to just one form. Like being good at math or logic as we often think, there are at least 9 different types of intelligence. Some people have musical intelligence. They perceive melodies in an extraordinary way. Some have spatial intelligence. They can become talented architects or artists. Others have deep intrapersonal intelligence. They understand themselves and others with great subtlety. Our task is not to try to become a math whiz when our gift is music. Our task is to bravely set out to find our own innate type of intelligence and cultivate it in the most suitable soil. The story of Thomas Edison is a powerful testament. People often say he failed more than 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. But he himself said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Let's look deeper into this statement. Each unsuccessful experiment was not a step backward, but a step forward in the process of elimination. It helped him narrow down the scope of his search. Like a person in a maze, every time they hit a dead end, they know for sure that the exit is not there. Similarly, every unsuitable job we go through is a time we eliminate and understand more clearly which soil is not for us. That is not failure. It is the process of collecting valuable data for the map of our lives. A stumble in one's career, an unfulfilled plan, a broken relationship. These things often leave a deep scar within us. We tend to look at them as a tombstone, engraved with judgments about our abilities and self-worth. We let feelings of disappointment and despair overwhelm us, believing that the road ahead is blocked. The shadow of failure can sometimes be so large that it obscures the entire sky of hope, leaving us without the courage to move forward. However, ancient wisdom tells us the story of Weng lost his horse, or the old man at the frontier who lost his horse. The story goes that the old man's prized horse suddenly ran away. The neighbors came to offer condolences. Considering it a misfortune, the old man simply replied calmly, "How do you know this isn't a blessing?" A few months later, that horse returned, bringing with it an even more valuable wild horse. The neighbors came again to congratulate him. The old man remained calm. "How do you know this isn't a disaster?" Sure enough, his son fell and broke his leg while riding the wild horse. The neighbors came again to comfort him. The old man still maintained a placid expression. "How do you know this isn't a blessing?" Shortly after, foreign invaders arrived, and all the able-bodied young men in the village had to go to battle. And most of them died. Only the old man's son, because of his broken leg, was allowed to stay home. His life spared. The story does not teach us to be indifferent, but to not hastily label any event as a failure or success. A door that closes today might just be making way for a better door to open tomorrow. This profound perspective once again finds a common voice with modern science through the concept of the growth mindset. Psychologists have found that people who view their abilities as fixed and unchangeable tend to collapse when faced with failure. They see it as proof of their incompetence. Conversely, those with a growth mindset believe that abilities can be improved through effort. For them, failure is not a tombstone, but a compass, an invaluable piece of feedback. It tells them that their current method is not effective, and they need to learn and adjust to do better. Our brains are designed to learn from mistakes. It is the most fundamental evolutionary mechanism that has helped humans survive and thrive. Look at the life of Walt Disney. He was once fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. If he had viewed that as a tombstone for his career, the world would never have had the magical dreams of Disneyland. That shock of rejection forced him to create his own world. A world so vast and creative that no newspaper could contain it. Or Steve Jobs, who was fired from the very company he founded. That adversity was the furnace that forged a more extraordinary version of him. It gave him the opportunity to found new companies, learn new lessons, so that when he returned, he transformed Apple into a legend. Failure is not the end point, it is just a necessary turn on the road to greatness. When faced with contempt or criticism, our emotions often rise like a fierce wave. The heart beats faster, the face flushes, and a series of defensive or counter-attacking words immediately spring to mind. We let that emotional wave sweep away our composure. The greatest victory in life is not winning an argument against others, but winning against the very wave of negative emotions surging within us. There is a classic story in the treasure trove of Eastern wisdom. One day, a Brahmin came to the Buddha and used the harshest, most vulgar words to insult him. The Buddha sat still, listening silently with a completely serene mind. After the man had exhausted himself with insults, the Buddha gently asked, "Sir, if you bring a gift to give to someone, but that person refuses to accept it, to whom does the gift ultimately belong?" The Brahmin, though still angry, had to reply, "Well, it belongs to me, of course." The Buddha smiled gently. "Likewise, the insults you just gave me, I do not accept, so now, to whom do they belong?" The Brahmin was stunned. had a moment of awakening, and bowed his head in shame. The story is a supreme lesson that we have the full power to choose not to receive negative energy from others. This is not a spiritual miracle, but a real mechanism within our brain. When criticized, a small part of the brain called the amygdala, likened to an emotional sentinel, immediately sounds the alarm. It activates the instinctual fight or flight response, making us want to defend or attack instantly. But we humans have a more marvelous part. The prefrontal cortex, the captain of reason and judgment, practicing calmness, taking a deep breath before reacting, is how we give this captain time to take control of the ship. Instead of letting the panicked sentinel make the decision, we can absolutely train ourselves to choose our response wisely, rather than reacting instinctively. At that point, the criticism of others is no longer an arrow that wounds us, but becomes a mirror. Instead of getting angry at the mirror, a wise person uses it to look at themselves. Their words are like a bell, and instead of being annoyed by the loud bell, let's listen to what it is signaling about our inner home. Is there a corner within us that is still weak, still insecure, making it easily shaken by a gentle breeze from the outside? Others inadvertently help us see our weaknesses so we can improve. When you can remain calm in the face of contempt, when you are no longer moved by criticism, that is when you truly begin to mature. We often admire those called geniuses and believe they were born with some kind of magic, a superior talent that ordinary people cannot possess. We look at their achievements and think their path must have been paved with roses. But the truth is often not like that. The greatest secret of extraordinary people lies not in innate talent, but in a quality that seems much more ordinary: persistence. The wisdom of the ancients summed this up in a simple yet powerful image. Water wears away stone. A drop of water is soft. A rock is hard, but drop by drop, persistently falling on the same spot, day after day, year after year, can eventually penetrate the hardest rock. Extraordinary strength comes not from a single mighty blow, but from millions of repetitions of a small action with unwavering determination. Persistence, like those water droplets, has a silent power that can conquer any obstacle. What is incredible is that this metaphor accurately describes what is happening inside our brains. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. Imagine every skill you learn, from playing a piece of music to learning a new language, is like creating a trail in the dense forest of your brain. The first time you walk it, the trail is faint, overgrown with weeds, but every time you repeat it, every time you practice, you are clearing that path, and the brain does something even more miraculous. It paves that path with a substance called myelin, which helps nerve signals travel faster and more accurately along it. A genius is not someone born with pre-existing highways in their brain. They are simply people who have diligently and persistently paved their own trails every day until they become grand boulevards. Let's look back at the story of the writer J.K. Rowling. She was rejected by 12 publishers before the world came to know Harry Potter. If she had given up on the 11th try, a childhood legend would never have been born. But let's look even deeper. Perhaps the rejections from those 12 publishers were not just a challenge. Perhaps they were also a gift. It gave her more time to polish her story, to let the wizarding world emerge more perfectly and completely. Sometimes, waiting and persevering are not just about overcoming difficulties, but are also a necessary phase for our work, for our skills, to mature. Edison, Disney, Rowling, Jobs, they had no magic. They had only one thing in common: they did not give up. And they loved what they did, so much so that they were willing to endure any failure to continue on that path. We are often advised to find our passion, our life's mission, as if it were a treasure hidden somewhere that we must find. But this grand question sometimes becomes a heavy stone on our shoulders, making us feel more pressured and lost when we haven't found the answer. We fumble, we try, we search, and sometimes we feel exhausted on the very journey to find joy in our work. Taoist wisdom has a wonderful concept called Wu Wei. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means acting in harmony with nature, without forcing, without strain. Imagine a woodcarver. He does not use force to make the wood bend to his will. He follows every grain, every fiber, allowing its natural beauty to emerge. Or imagine a person rowing a boat downstream. They do not fight the current but go with the flow to make the boat move faster and more effortlessly. When we do something that we are truly immersed in, when our actions flow naturally, that is when we are living in a state of Wu Wei. Energy is not consumed, but regenerated, and strangely enough, this seemingly mystical state is described very clearly by modern science through a concept called flow. This is a psychological state studied by the scientists Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It's when you are doing something, perhaps reading, playing an instrument, gardening, or programming, that you lose track of time, forget your hunger, and even forget your own existence. You and the task seem to merge into one. Everything happens smoothly and easily. This is considered one of the happiest and most satisfying human experiences. This state of flow is the scientific expression of Wu Wei. So, don't burden yourself with finding a great passion immediately. Ask a simpler question. Is there anything that makes me happy and lose track of time? Start there, with something small. It could be caring for a potted plant, organizing a bookshelf, learning a new song, or simply taking a walk in the park. Don't underestimate these small things. They are the first flows. And from these small flows, the great river of your life will gradually be cleared, leading you to the vast ocean of yourself. The world around us seems to always operate on the metrics of achievement. We are taught that a person's value lies in their profession, their position, how much money they earn. We look at someone and the first question that often comes to mind is, what does she do for a living? And then we inadvertently use that answer to frame and value a person. Living in such an environment, we also impose these metrics on ourselves, and feel worthless when we haven't met those standards. But let's pause for a moment and look deeper. A person's value is not in what job they do, but in whether they are truly living as themselves. A carpenter who puts all his heart into creating a chair, infusing it with love and meticulousness, is no less valuable than a CEO running a large company. A mother who devotes all her love to caring for her family, nurturing kind souls, her contribution is priceless. True value does not lie in the external label, but in the character, the sincerity, and the love that radiates from within. This world does not need more perfect people fitting a ready-made mold. We already have too many copies. The world needs original people. People who know how to live fully as themselves, who know how to love what they do, and who know how to stand firm in a storm. A garden would be boring if it had only one type of flower. No matter how magnificent that flower is, the beauty of the garden lies in its diversity, where each flower confidently displays its colors, contributing its own irreplaceable beauty to the overall picture. You are the same. You are a unique flower in the garden of life. Don't try to become another flower. Be the most radiant version of yourself. Therefore, what you are doing today does not necessarily have to be successful by someone else's definition. Sometimes, what you are doing is just a foundational experiment for you to learn to understand yourself, for you to find the most fertile ground for your own seed. The most important thing is to keep the fire within burning, the fire to dare to live, to dare to try, to dare to stumble, and most importantly, to dare to get up. Believe that you will find your own path. not a path someone has drawn for you, but a path you carve out yourself with faith, with determination, and with a heart that never gives up. Because the greatest treasure is not at the end of the journey, but within the brave person who dared to begin it. This is one of the videos in the Cosmic Energy series, where science and spirituality converge to help you better understand yourself and the evolution of consciousness. Right finger, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next videos.